Hello, welcome to another episode of From Campus to Careers. My name's Andy from the Placements team. This episode is part of our Blueprint series where we talk to current students and graduates about their placements and careers experience. Today, I'm joined by Evie Phillips, who did a 13-month placement at BMW. She got involved in loads of great projects, and there's loads of interesting information about what she learned on her placement, how she got her placement. So without any further ado, let's get on with the podcast. Welcome both. Thank you so much for coming on the episode. Before we talk to you, Evie, about your role at BMW, we just thought I'd give Marjana a chance to introduce herself.
Yeah, so my name is Marjana. I'm a placement student. I'm currently working within the Careers and Placements department at Aston University, and I currently study finance at Aston as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And Evie, before we talk about your placement, could you maybe just say a little bit about what you study, maybe what brought you to Aston?
So I'm a final year psychology student at Aston. I looked at a lot of unis, as everyone does when looking for unis, and I really liked how big Aston put on, how much information they put on about placements and how important a placement is, and the opportunity they make it easy for you to try and get a placement. So I liked that there was a lot of support with that. So that was one of the main pulls that I had to come to Aston Uni. And then I've just come back from my placement year. So it was definitely worth picking Aston.
Wonderful. And I know from, I had a look at your LinkedIn, which is, you've done a great job there. So well done. There's loads of information about the kind of projects you worked on at BMW. And I think you managed to lead on some stuff, which is great. Before I ask you to tell me about what you did, could you tell me what it was about BMW or the role they had that attracted you?
Yeah, so I think when I going into placements, obviously doing a psychology degree, I sort of realised I didn't necessarily want to go down the proper psychological route with placements, but with that being said, I then didn't know what I wanted to go into. So I was looking around at various ones, and I came across, the first one I came across actually was a Disney placement, and it was a corporate social responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I looked at the job description, and it was just ticking every box. Like, I really liked those aspects. And then I looked into it more, found jobs that were diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is then when I came across BMW. I think that was like the third one that I found. And I really liked that area. So like, for example, not that I've ever really done that strictly before, but I do a lot with the scouts. Like, I'm a scout leader. I've done volunteering in Kenya before, and all of them linked into that diversity, equity, and inclusion sector. And I didn't realize that was like a job that I could go into. Mm-hmm. It's great. So yeah, I applied to a couple of placements. It's always good to apply to more than one. And BMW, I managed to get all the way through, had the interview, and then got offered that job, which was like the best feeling ever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was obviously BMW, everyone sort of heard of it. And just thinking back to when I started uni, I didn't quite picture myself working at a car company as well known as BMW, but in nothing related to cars, I guess. But it shows that just because like it's an automotive brand or what other sectors like people might look into, it doesn't mean you have to work in an area that's specifically linked to that, which I found quite interesting, because I know I would assume, I don't want to work with cars. Why would I go for BMW? But then I found landed my dream placement with them. So
yeah, it's a really interesting observation really about the kind of the difference between what sector and what role, and how those things can merge together or not is really interesting. Tell me more about your role then, what you did, what you got up to.
Yeah, so my official title was Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Coordinator. Mm-hmm. So it was a 13-month placement. During the first month, you have a handover month with the previous intern. Oh. So it was a really nice sort of onboarding. You get to know about the role. You have all your handover notes. You get to ask all those questions in that month to then prepare you to sort of get on with the rest of your placement. And then during your final month is when the new intern comes in and then you hand over. So it's like this constant cycle. And it's a real full circle moment, that bit anyway, because all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, my placement's already done. I'm already handing over again. But yeah, the role itself, sort of a brief summary is there's 6 employee network groups on our HQ. So there's a Minds Matter, which is a mental health one, Ability and Beyond, which is a disabilities, neurodiversity one, Unity, which is a gender equality. You've got Connect One, which is your more generic networking. And then Embrace is culture and ethnicity. So you have those groups on campus. They're led by people who have their regular day job, so they volunteer on top. You've got you'll have chairs, so you'll have 2 co-chairs or just 1 chair, and then you'll have members that also join those groups as well. And my job is basically to steer and liaise with them and look after them. And so they'll have like monthly meetings, I'll go to them, they'll come up with a yearly strategy, they'll come up with events, and my job is to basically be the person that makes that happen. So I'm in charge of the budget, I'm got all the supplier contacts if we're like wanting materials brought in, and I'm the one that's booking things, making it all happen. I also then can come up with ideas, so like the freedom to come up with projects. If I want to make something happen, or if I have an idea for a specific group, then I can suggest it and I can make it happen just as much. So that's sort of the internal side of it. And then you also support how BMW as a whole is inclusive as a company to more external. So for example, I wrote a lot of award submissions to nominate our company for all the great work that we've been doing. We also launched our diversity data project. So sort of collecting that data to see how we can support employees more and be more inclusive to everybody who works on campus. And yeah, it was really fun. That's kind of a brief overview. I could keep talking about it for ages.
That's great. And I think I might ask a bit later about any specific projects you wanted to talk about, but that's a really good overview of the role. One thing I wanted to come back to, you mentioned about that first month where you get the handover, which sounds like a really good a good setup, right? Because there's a lot of challenge in arriving new in a workplace, particularly as a placement student. But I was just interested to ask a bit more about that. Like, what did you find challenging or unexpected in that kind of just suddenly arriving on placement? What were the things that struck you that?
Yeah, I think I was very nervous. So I remember I couldn't eat breakfast the first morning. I was just so nervous, but also really excited because a lot of people had the opportunity to go. I mean, I got given the opportunity to go visit before. Once I got the job, they offered if I wanted to visit, but with it being quite far away from where I lived, I turned that opportunity down. So a lot of people had already gone and got used to the place. And this was like my first day was my first time ever seeing campus and like meeting the people in person. I literally met my manager on a Teams call and that was it. So I was very nervous. But no, it was really nice. The first day, it wasn't just straight into sort of the onboarding. They had a whole day because there's my cohort, there was 80 interns on campus. So from all different sections of the company. So we had like a lot of presentations. They did like, your standard onboarding, like fire, health and safety, all of that. But we got given like a little goodie bag with a notebook, water bottle, things like that, little extras. Everyone loves to get them. And yeah, we got to have a tour and we got to see the cars. There's like a little showroom in one of the rooms. So it's always nice. We got to go sit in them and learn a bit more about the cars. So yeah, it was a really nice first day. And then the last sort of couple of hours was meet your team, say hello, and get to know where you are in the office, where to go the next day. But that was like a really nice first day. Sort of get your bearings, get used to it, and you're not just bombarding straight into your work. It also then showed that they really cared about the interns. Like, it's a proper program and you feel very well supported. You met everyone that you might need to talk to as well. And then sort of, we've talked about like first week, it's kind of, I had a lot of my previous intern who obviously did my handover, booked in a lot of meetings to like meet the people in my team and then also meet, for example, the chairs of the employee network group. So I got to know everybody before, going to a random meeting and then meeting them for the first time. I'd already got to put their names to their faces. So a lot of that was just like, that was the initial week of meeting people in like one-to-ones, also doing, mandatory training. We love to see it. And then after that month is sort of getting to know the role, getting to know things that you need to do. And you got to ask all the questions you needed to do. I'm not sure if my intern was probably getting sick of how many things I was asking, but, they literally say use that month. And I think another aspect that was really good was obviously you go in and you're worried like, oh, what if I'm not good enough? Or like, I've never done this before. How, like, are people going to be like annoyed that I'm not doing it? But everyone, no matter how many years they'd worked there, how great they were at their job, they appreciated how much they understood the interns are new. They've not had a corporate job before. And they really were supportive. Like, even if I remember like looking puzzled and I hadn't even asked for help and somebody was like, you good? Do you need any help? Like, they were so quick to help. And that was really, really nice, especially after like the intern left and I went into my first month. Obviously, that's my first month on my own as such.
Yeah.
And you genuinely don't feel like you're on your own at all. So it was really good.
That's good. Marjana, how about you? Would you have any tips for a student, like for that first few weeks or month? Or
I think definitely, like you said, I was really nervous. And we had that handover period as well when Ariana, who was the previous placement student, handed us over. I think for me, it was a bit different because I've got another placement student with me by my side. So we would always kind of like buddy up and talk about what's going on during the day. But I think one thing you really need to do is just reach out to your team. If you are struggling, and how you mentioned feeling puzzled and not knowing what to do, where to go, if you're doing the right thing, I think just reaching out and making that effort to speak to people really did help. I think shadowing as well was a big thing for me, especially in my first couple months, 1 to 2 months that I was starting. If I didn't understand something or I didn't really get what was going on, I just looked through my colleagues' calendars and I asked, you got this meeting. Do you mind if I could shadow you? Or if it's like a task that I have to do daily and I'm expected to do, I just asked, do you mind if I shadow you whilst you do this? So I kind of got an idea. And you kind of puzzle and piece together how different colleagues do things and you find your own way. It's not necessarily one way fits all. Everybody's got their own routines of how they work and how they approach different tasks. But it's nice to kind of get an insight into how different people do different things and kind of figuring out for yourself as you go along.
That's really useful. Thank you. Evie, I know you got involved in loads of different projects. I wonder if you could maybe tell us about one or two of them, and particularly if there's one you're really proud of that you want to give us a bit of detail about.
Yeah, I think I'll give two. One more, the D&I role, and then I'll talk about the intern projects that we had to do. So it was quite early on in my placement. It was October, but sort of it started in September. So my second month in without the whole handover month, and it was World Mental Health Days was coming up, so that's in October, and Minds Matter obviously took the lead on that, with them being the mental health employee network group. And so this was my first big event that I was told to help with and help manage. So we had a brainstorm meeting, myself, a couple of members and the chair, and I actually came up with the first idea, sort of linking it to psychology. I had the idea about happy hormones and how to boost them. So, like dopamine, how the unhealthy way to boost dopamine is like scrolling on TikTok. But a healthier way to boost it might be to go on a walk or do something a little bit more productive. So it was about spreading awareness about how we could boost that, serotonin, oxytocin, and things like that. So we basically planned out 4 that we'd have, and then, for example, we had smoothie bowls as like a healthy snack because that can boost dopamine. And then we had a lunchtime walk organised to boost serotonin. It was really fun. And we also had some we created some little handouts about like dopamine addiction and how to avoid that through like obviously just scrolling on your phone until the early hours of the morning. And it was really interesting. And I think a lot of people found it interesting. And it was a new way to learn about these things because we made it in a way that people could relate to it. Obviously, everyone can appreciate like a hot shower in the evening, or they could appreciate going for a walk to clear their head. And it was a lot of sort of strategies to boost those things that you could also then do in the office as well if people are having that down day or anything like that. And that event went really well. It was especially challenging in the sense of the chair of Minds Matter was on holiday on the day of the event, and then my manager was also on holiday. So I was basically team lead. So obviously still fairly new, getting used to the role, and I'm leading this whole project that's happening on campus, and it's like the biggest event that they do for that employee network group. But I got some really nice feedback. I basically supported all the volunteers that helped on each of the stands, and then the chair came back and wrote my manager like a really lovely long email about all the things that I'd done and everything else. And it was really nice to hear that feedback that I did do a good job, because that was the first sort of event that I've managed as such. And then sort of away from the role itself, BMW do this thing called the intern projects. So every intern, we're having 80 odd interns, you get allocated to a group with say 7-8 other interns, and you get given a topic or like an area of the business that needs improving. It's completely irrelevant to what role you're in. And you basically get told, this is what you need to do, go do it. So the theme what we got given was to create a community notice board platform that employees could use to advertise things, ask questions, because we didn't really have that. We had like our corporate comms, but that wasn't really good for if people wanted to sell a car or ask a question about anything that's not really corporate related. And so that was a really good opportunity to do something away from the role, meet other interns that you may necessarily not have worked with. You identify some team leaders. So I was a co-leader for that project. And at the end, once we'd like successfully implemented it, we had deadlines and things like that. But you then had to present to the management committee, which included the CEOs, HRDs, and it was like to the big people of the company. So we ended up presenting as a group to about 100 people, like our project from start to finish and the outcomes. And then we had like a marketplace after for them to come over to ask more questions if they wanted to. So that was huge. Like I think often people think, oh, you're just an intern, but no, I'm presenting to the CEOs of the company. Like, you don't really think that's what's going to happen, and then you do. But I really liked that aspect of my placement, of those intern projects. You really got stuck in like an area you wouldn't really think to get stuck into.
Yeah, and it's really good to hear that a good quality placement feels like proper professional work. It's good that BMW do that, and I know lots of employers do make sure that interns and placement students have like a really strong experience. You mentioned leadership a little bit. My next question is about kind of skills development. So I guess just a summary of like what other skills you think you developed whilst you were on your working year.
Yeah, so leadership being one of them, obviously from that, that was obviously leading events in my actual role, but then obviously there was people management in that intern project. That was something I hadn't really done properly before. So that was a really good way to showcase that, okay, this is a skill that I've developed. It's worked well. I've had feedback. I've not had issues with it. Another area I think was communication. I think I've always been quite confident with various like speaking things, obviously through like scouts and previous work, like leading and speaking in front of people, but like not really experience in a corporate setting. So, like writing an email to somebody in the business is a bit different to emails that I might have written before. Same with like Teams messaging, but also just like how to carry yourself in conversations. Like, don't be wrong, some are going to be a bit more laid back when you're having a chat with like a colleague that's become a friend. But then it's also about how do you talk well in meetings, and if you're presenting to higher up people or steering a meeting with stakeholders, it's about learning the different ways that you should communicate and hold yourself for all those different things. And that was a really good experience, because you sort of get to see other people do it, and then one meeting it'll be your turn to sort of lead that. And it's a bit scary, to be fair. I remember my first one, it was like all of the management committee who are like the exec sponsors of the network groups, and my manager was like, oh, do you want to lead the meeting? And I was like, yeah, a bit apprehensive, but you just have to remember they're all people. Like they've all been sort of in your situation. They've worked their way up. They've worked hard to get there, and you just speak to them, and you just keep yourself professional, keep it confident. And I think, yeah, the communication skills really got really advanced during my placement. Yeah.
Wonderful. Any others?
I think another one would probably be, again, kind of communications, but written. I didn't realize how much writing, obviously writing emails and everything else, but for example, award submissions, I'm writing these like 4 or 5 page award submissions in very much using like corporate lingo and everything. So I think my writing has become a lot more professional. Obviously uni helps with that, but then putting it into practice in like daily work, I've definitely come back feeling like I can write essays and other stuff in a lot more of a professional academic tone than what I think maybe I was doing in second year. I also think time management, obviously, working in a job, you've got deadlines and you can't miss those deadlines. They are the deadlines. So I think managing multiple projects, obviously supporting the 6 network groups as well as external diversity and inclusion related things, you really have to learn to manage your time and juggle various things. So like if I've got a busy week, my calendar is like, right, do this at this time, do this at this time. So I think time management's definitely improved, because maybe in second year I probably wasn't the best at time management because, you're at uni, you might have other things that you want to do. But I think I've come back with a much more straightforward mindset of, right, uni work, 9 to 5, my evenings are free, my weekends are free. So I think that's probably a skill that placements help with as well.
Yeah, I think that's really key, isn't it? Like how students come back off placement year, is it's really notable. Students who've been on placement year, the work ethic, I suppose. Marjana, do you have either any input about skills development, like what you feel you've gained from your placement?
So far.
Or any questions for Evie that you want to ask?
How you mentioned the writing skills, I feel like that's something I've worked on, because like writing an email and speaking to people in a professional manner, you don't really get that opportunity to do that when you're at university. And I like the amount I've written in terms of emails has been crazy since I've started. It's only been like 2-3 months. So I feel like that's quite handy to know that it's helped you when you go back to your final year. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about your role in more detail. So you were really involved in BMW's diversity and inclusion group. So what was that experience like, and what did it teach you about working in an inclusive environment?
Yeah, so I think I always knew that D&I was obviously a thing in companies, but never really understood what that specifically meant for a company to be inclusive and have D&I initiatives. So I think it's definitely given me a greater understanding about how it actually works. So obviously, I think it's really nice. It's actually from the placement. I think now, like looking at grad schemes or like places to work, I'm looking at if they are an inclusive employer, and I'm looking like, do they have these employee network groups? Do they have these initiatives? Because I think it makes such a more positive working environment.
Yeah, 100%.
Knowing that you're supported and there's these extracurricular, I guess, things that you can take part in. And especially I think it's important, like, say if you do have a disability, or if you follow a certain religion, like it's really nice to see that you are thought about. For example, we do a lot with like Diwali celebrations or Eid celebrations. And I think if you follow those religions, and seeing that your employer is thinking about you and your celebrations and your culture, like that's really important. Same with for example, at BMW, there's a guide dog. There's a blind man with a guide dog. And so we introduced tactile pavements so they know where to cross, like things like that. Some employers might not care, but it's the fact, like, you're in that situation, and the fact that they're looking at, they've introduced that for you. So it helps your life at work, like, that's an employer that I'd want to work for. So I think it's definitely opened my eyes into making sure that that's a big factor of when I'm applying to roles, that they are inclusive. I think the benefits of getting involved in D&I, like employee network groups and any job, is you get to meet more people around the business. My network was huge. Like, it was a lot bigger than maybe necessarily some other interns. Because yes, I have my team that I sit within, but then I have all the 6 network group chairs and members. They're all in random areas of the business. Some are in marketing, some are in finance, some are in product, like any sort of area. So you get to know more people that you wouldn't ever have really spoken to, because your main role may not have necessarily linked to them at all. But joining these groups, you get to know people around the business. So even just from an expanding your network point of view, it's great. But also you can get involved. And also, like, for example, I realised I missed a network group. We've got the Pride group as well, obviously. And like, for example, like, we have some people in the Pride group who are straight, and they're just allies. Like, you don't have to necessarily feel as though you should be part of that group to join them. Like, you might not necessarily have a disability or any neurodiversity issues, but you could join the Ability and Beyond group because you want to support people who do have a disability on campus, for example. And I think that's really nice as well, is that anyone can join any group, no matter who you are or what background you're from. So I think it's just an extra bonus on top of work. I feel like it's a more fun aspect. It's a thing to look forward to. And you get to do some fun events. Like, yeah, it's just always
sounds really rewarding, that department.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Another question that I had is, what advice would you give to students who might start looking for placements at the moment? Where should they begin really with their applications?
Yeah, so I feel like placement season probably started September, but if you've not already started applying, there's definitely still time, but I would get on it soon, because I feel like the main application season is now from September to December, and then you still have some in January, February, so it's definitely not too late. When you're looking, I think I used my key ones was definitely Aston Futures, And then also I used Bright Network quite a lot as well. And just sort of just keep checking. If you've had a look through them all, there's always new ones coming out. So you can like filter to recently opened, for example, and just check. Just keep checking once or twice, 3 times a week, seeing which ones are coming out. If there are any closing soon, just check that you definitely don't want to apply to them. I think don't be fussy with your areas that you want. Like have a look, you'll be surprised. I know for like grad scheme applying, the D&I sector is very niche for grad roles. But when looking at other sectors, I've noticed like even in marketing, I'm like, oh, there's event management, there's project management, there's communications. And I'm like, I really enjoyed those aspects of my placement. So I'm like, okay, I'll apply to that because it's got thing I'm interested in. And it also then advances your experience as well. There's no harm in trying a slightly different sector. And a placement's a really good opportunity to say if you're not sure on an area, but you're like, oh, maybe I will really like it. A placement's a perfect opportunity to see that, because at the end of the day, it's maximum a year. If you don't like it, it's only a year.
You can always change.
And then you're aware that, okay, that's maybe not what I want to go into, but at least I know, and now I know, oh, I definitely like this other job, so I can now look into that.
Having that clarity, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And a placement's the perfect opportunity to do that. And I think if you're applying, make sure apply with a cover letter. If it's optional, add it. There is absolutely no harm in adding it, so just add it. Tailor your CV, tailor your cover letter, do some research. Like I think my go-to, even for roles that I was applying to that weren't D&I related, I would look up the D&I things, because if you show an interest in extracurricular aspects of a role, I think employers quite often like to see that. And I think just keep going. Rejections are rough, you get a lot. I think especially like I'm literally in the process of grad scheme applications, and there's a lot of rejections, but you just have to keep going. You've got to think you're not the problem at all. It's just that there are so many people trying to go for those placements, is that you will be the right fit for the right job, and you just have to keep trying to find that job.
What was the application process like for BMW?
Yeah, so my application process is slightly different to what it is this year, so I'll explain both. But my one was you apply, CV and cover letter, you do your online assessments, which is a little maths test, and then a reading, and like you read the statements and see if you have to say whether a statement's true or false based on the text you read. And then you would do a one-way video interview. And then after that, I got contacted for an actual interview. So I had an interview with the hiring manager on Teams.
Okay.
And then after that, I got offered the role. Now, so if you apply for placements now, you will apply CV and cover letter. You will do maths and the reading assessments again. That's the same, but they now don't do video interviews. So the next stage would be an assessment centre in person.
Okay.
So you go onto campus and you take part in like group activities. I don't know the full extent because it's new for this year, but they will see your skills, and then if you pass that is when you'll do an interview and then hopefully get the job. So that's the new layout, which I think is better, because personally biased, I don't really like the video interviews.
It's nice to go in and have a look for yourself and get a feel for what it's like.
Because I think it's good because you may not like it, for example, and that would then be able to help you decide that from visiting the people, meeting people, the real people that you'll work with as such.
Wonderful, thank you for that. That was really interesting input about some tips about how to go about looking for a placement and a grad role. So thank you. I was just interested to know if you've used the Careers and Placements service at all whilst you've been at Aston.
Yeah, so I used it to sort of look for placements and grad schemes. Obviously, you guys will post opportunities that you find. So that was a key part that I used it for. And then in second year, we had Jim do our we had an aspect of our coursework be related to careers and placements. He came in and he set us the task of doing a CV and a cover letter for a placement that we were applying to, and we had to submit it as coursework. And we also then had to do your guys' like practice video interviews as part of that coursework. And I really liked that was a thing, because it kind of made everyone do it. It made you get a good standard CV and cover letter, and the deadline was before obviously the main placement season was over, so you would get your results and your feedback of how to improve your CV and cover letter before your placement applications are done. And I think I found that really useful. I really like that that's a thing that was done in our course. I'm not sure if they do it in loads of other of the second year degrees, but in psychology I really liked it. Because then I got feedback of, oh, you don't need to add this in your CV, or make sure you add this, and it's things that I may have not have thought about. So I definitely then got to apply to placements with a such better tailored CV and cover letter than I maybe would have without having that support from the careers and placements coursework.
Yeah.
And then doing video interviews, that was something I didn't even know was a thing when I started applying. That, what do you mean you have to talk to yourself at a camera and answer these questions? So I think knowing that that was a thing and being able to practice that before doing the actual thing definitely then helped you to be aware of these, like the kind of questions they ask, and you have sort of like a rough idea of what you're going to say in the actual answer. So it just prepares you for the applications, basically.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know Jim will be happy to hear that you found his work was helpful. I guess the last question I have is just about what's next for you. So I know you said you're applying for grad roles, but if you've got any preferences or thoughts about what comes next, and maybe like how your time at BMW has influenced what you're looking for now, or where you think you might take your career, even if you're looking 5 years from now.
Yeah, so my next is definitely a grad scheme or grad role of some sort, if not then just full-time regular work. I think I've definitely realised that maybe like further education isn't quite for me, like a master's, and I think I just want to get stuck in with more experience and like going into work. I think my placements really strongly set me up. One, yes, I've got then 13 months experience under my belt, but also all the skills that you develop and enhance during placement is something that's really useful. And it's things and like examples that you can talk about in interviews, and like examples you can give in your cover letter. It just like all these, like, you know, the typical employment questions that you get. I now have an example of where I've demonstrated the skill, like for every question that you get given. So I think that's definitely set me up. So yeah, now it's just application after application and just keep going until something finally gets to the final stage, and that final yes, you've got the job.
Good. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Please do feel free to let us know when you do finally get that big yes. And thank you so much for joining us today, Evie, and thank you as well.
Thank you very much.
That's all for today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of From Campus to Careers. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And remember, you can book an appointment with the Careers and Placements team via Aston Futures. Thank you.